As an open and export-oriented economy, Singapore felt the impact of the global crisis more than most countries. We responded aggressively with emergency measures, and last December, when things looked very grim, we introduced a program called SPUR, Skills Program for Upgrading and Resilience, to help workers upgrade their skills and therefore keep their jobs, with programs, with actual training courses, and with government subventions and support. Then we worked out a comprehensive response to the crisis, which we introduced in an early budget in January this year. Many items, but two key programs in the budget. One was a jobs credit scheme, which meant the state took over part of the social costs of employing workers, of contributing to their Central Provident Fund accounts, which means their pension funds, rather than employers paying for these contributions. And this reduced the cost of employing the workers, kept businesses viable, and preserved jobs. And we also had a special risk-sharing initiative, which is a scheme for the government to share the risk of loans from banks to businesses, especially SMEs, so that viable businesses could continue to have access to credit. The measures resulted in a budget deficit of 5 to 6% of GDP, one of the largest deficits in our history. Or if we look at it the other way around, one of the largest fiscal impulses in our history. But the purpose was not to boost domestic demand. It was to help companies to retain workers and to help workers to improve their skills and employability. Because we decided the best thing we could do was to help keep companies afloat, keep workers in jobs, and therefore they can look after themselves and see through the immediate crisis. The measures were supported both by employers and unions, and they were effective both in stabilizing the economy and in maintaining confidence. Today, Singapore and the global economy too is experiencing a clear but modest recovery. The economies are holding steady, consumer confidence is returning, trade flows have stabilized, and industrial production has shown some pickup. In particular, Asia is experiencing a strong rebound. Several economies are maintaining their strong growth. China, for example, will well exceed 8% this year. India is also continuing to grow steadily. And Indonesia is experiencing more than 4% growth, which benefits its neighbors. The IMF predicts that Asia will lead the global recovery, which I think is correct, and the growth forecast for 2010, next year, is Asia 6%, G3 1.2%. So we are in the right region of the world. But risks still remain. The economic recovery is not yet on a firm footing. Much of the rebound has been driven by fiscal stimulus measures, and the effect will wear off in the coming months. Unemployment will remain high for some time. In America, it exceeds 10%, which is higher than it has been in a very long time. Bank balance sheets, especially in America and Western Europe, remain weak, and lending is still tight. And therefore, countries are watching the situation carefully and will only gradually unwind their stimulus measures, hopefully in a coordinated way so that you don't have disorderly change in the situation. Nevertheless, we expect that the worst is over. In the long term, high growth will continue in Asia because China and India will continue to liberalize, especially China. The demographics are favorable in the big countries. There's a young population, large workforce, and low dependency ratios. There's a growing middle class with spending power, growing urbanization, creating new demands for infrastructure, for services. There's rising education and skill levels so that the capability to produce, to participate in the global economy is strengthening. And Asian enterprises are increasingly prominent, increasingly operating beyond their own home countries and opening up regional markets and global markets, and showing an interest in what's happening in the region and in the world, for example, by attending this CEO Summit. So provided we keep our markets open, provided we develop our economies and we maintain links within Asia and across the Pacific, the future looks bright.